The 9 scariest words in the English language, according to Ronald Reagan, are "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Yeah. And the government is here to help Google, which is going to get really interesting really fast. So we have known an antitrust suit is coming forever. And it's been, more or less an open air conspiracy because they've been talking about it forever. Google knows it. They function from that paradigm, as a matter of fact. Most of what they do, I think, is set up in a pseudo attempt at building a defense against this exact type of case. There's also really, to be honest, no question in any logical person's mind that Google has some level of culpability here, but the excusable nature of some of their actions stems from the fact that they were the only ones in the game, and in order to serve the market the best way, they had to be the dominant force, which led to some competitive practices that may or may not get them into trouble. But here's what's really interesting. The Justice Department is filing antitrust charges against Google, but they're doing it too soon. So if you read this article, and I'll link to this in the video, they're bringing the case this month. Most of the attorneys are actually opposed to the deadline. And when you read further in greater depth, you find out that the Attorney General, William Barr, he's making a political case out of this. So it says that Mr. Barr wanted to announce the case in September to take credit for action against a powerful tech company under the Trump administration. Because we have an election coming up, they want to use this. So, this is now a pawn on the chessboard, and it might be a lot bigger than a pawn, actually. But what's interesting about it is they could be shooting themselves in the foot. So the Justice Department, in speeding this up, is limiting the scope of the case. And the attorneys that were cited say that they could bring a stronger case, but they needed more time. Now, I know nothing about litigation or legal anything, to be frank, but I do know a lot about Google, and I know that you've got some assassins on the Google end, and I mean probably some of the smartest attorneys on the planet times 100,000, and you're going to want to bring your A game, Justice Department. And the fact that they're rushing this against the advice of their own counsel is really interesting, and it makes you wonder what's going to happen, because my assumption is going to be that they're only going to be able to press this issue once, or at least press each facet of the issue once. I don't know what the threshold for pain is going to be or even honestly what the legal implications are going to be to try to revisit something like this. So I think they're shooting their bullets too soon. This guy appears to have it out for Google and has for a long time. There's a coalition of 50 states that are all interested in antitrust action, but they're worried that the speed is going to hurt the bipartisan nature of the investigation, which is actually really important here. And the fact that it's everybody against Google, and it's a divide and conquer situation where as long as Google stands firm, it looks like the alliance, the coalition, is sort of falling apart a little bit just based off of the way that they're approaching. They've been an obvious antitrust target forever, and again, we've known that. This is no surprise. The speed is a little surprising. This is my favorite. Google controls about 90% of web searches globally. Now, I just want to say, I have been saying this forever. Google, and it's probably because of the antitrust issue, Google and Microsoft both like to say they top the 66% number. They say that we control 2/3 of search. And Microsoft says that too. They say that they have about 1/3 or whatever. What's funny about that, though, is that's per capita. So Google has 66 to 67% of users on a per capita basis, but they have 90% of the search because the people that search use Google. So it's been in Microsoft's best interest to support that lie because it makes them look bigger. It's been Google's best interest to support that lie because it helps against antitrust things. But I just want to point out the fact that technically speaking, on a legal level, Google has, for all intents and purposes, adjusted for margins of error all the search traffic. Google also captures 1/3 of every dollar spent on online advertising. This is where it gets weird. The Justice Department is going to bring antitrust suits on appears to be two fronts, search and advertising. And because of the speed at which they're moving, and we'll get to some of those snippets here in just a minute, they might only be able to do one or the other. As interesting, and just a little soundbite that I thought was interesting, that the head of the antitrust division had actually represented Google in 2007. So he ended up not being able to take the case. Where does this get interesting? So they're deciding whether or not they file a complaint that includes both search and advertising. They feel that they're going to have to narrow the case if it's going to be filed now. And according to Attorney General Ken Paxton of Texas, they think that the advertising case is the stronger case. So the reason this is so relevant for you and I, because if you're thinking about Google Ads, it's not just Google Ads. You also have to think about AdSense. But the entire Google Ads ecosystem is going to come under fire. And I don't know what that does. Honestly, it could help us in a lot of ways. If they decided to somehow split up this ecosystem, it could just make things more competitive, which tends to drive ad costs down. Could make advertising a whole lot harder too, though. They're worried about coming up with a half-baked case, which is interesting, and that's the end of the article. So I'll link to this article in the description of this video. This is something to watch because this is going to have very real, very tangible implications very quickly. And it's not just going to be based off of what results from the case. It's also going to be based off of preventative measures that Google's going to take. As a matter of fact, we might have seen some of those preventative measures already taking place. Some of what they've done, like, for instance, limiting search terms. They may be taking steps now. Well, not maybe. Of course they are taking steps now to, build whatever defensive case that they need to build in preparation for what's going to happen here. So keep your eyes peeled. It's going to change. We don't know what, but chances are it impacts both you and I and anybody who's spending or even searching inside the Google ecosystem. So here's the one thing in life that we all know works beyond the shadow of any doubt. My 3-year-old says, "Daddy, can you doodle it?" If we don't know the answer to something, and here the government is to fix it. So I'm not about monopolies. I don't think companies should be able to get away with, nefarious practices or any of those things. But goodness, just it's frustrating to see some of the way that these things are approached. And it'll be interesting to see how much the fix hurts. And maybe I'm not giving them credit. Maybe they'll actually improve something. Who knows? But I don't know. I don't buy it. I drank the Google Kool-Aid a long time ago. I'm clearly on Google's side here just because, they make me all my money. But it'll be interesting to watch in any case. I'll try to be as impartial as I can in future videos. Hopefully I didn't offend you. If you have any other ideas or comments or disagreements, hit me in the comments. I'd be really interested to have this conversation with you. Thumbs up if you like what I'm producing. Subscribe if you want to see more. Otherwise, I will see you later. Peace.